Okay, hello.
Good afternoon, evening, everybody. Welcome to Conversations. Everybody has a choice. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Hey, who are you?
I'm Tammy. I'm going to be the host for tonight, along with evangelist Marilyn Dawson, Carla, and then we have a special guest, Miss Arena.
Great, great. We're gonna have some what?
Conversations.
Yay.
I'm going to read the disclaimers. The views and opinions of the guests and everyone participating do not reflect the views and options of the conversation, the ministry, or founder. This is a forum to hear storytelling, have discussions, gain insights of others, life journeys, and perspectives. We're clergy, mental health, and social equity professionals, but this conversation is not intended to be a source, treatment, or therapy to replace your therapist or doctor.
Yep, I had to say that.
A little bit about the host, Marilyn Dawson, RN, esthetician, evangelist, and chaplain. She's the founder of Global Spiritual Healing Ministry, entrepreneur and businesswoman for over 30 years, God coach, spiritual discovery and transformation, health and wellness coach, God care, health and racial equity advocate, spa and spa retreat owner for 24 years, skincare and spa therapist expertise, holistic wellness and mental wellness therapies, transformational biodiverse retreats and events.
That's a mouthful. I gotta cut that back. Yeah.
And then a little bit more about our co-host, Carla
Hey,
Scorpio.
Carla.
She is a public health consultant, educator, social entrepreneur, public speaker devoted to achieving health and equity for women and girls, RN, MPH, midwife, bringing birthing youth into purpose and destiny.
Yay.
Then me, I'm a manager at Ulta Beauty. And I was a manager at Walmart for over 24 years, a spa director at Special Care Spa in Maryland, women's right advocate, domestic violence, and sex trafficking advocate.
Yep. Expert, we might as well say now.
Is Jan on?
No.
Okay. Do you want me to still read that?
Yeah.
Okay. Evangelist Janice Kirkley, BA, LC, SW, psychotherapy. Janice life work has been in social services, group homes, returning citizens, unhoused mental health. Her career spans over 30 years in the Denver metro region. Her passion and life work is caregiving for mentally challenged young adults, teaching work life skills to promote self esteem and purpose. Licensed in 2020 as an evangelist under Majestic Christ International Ministry.
Yay. Carla, will you read the rules for us, please?
Most certainly. Rules of the conversation. Be respectful of everyone's conversation. Limit your remarks to 2 minutes. No negative comments. Raise your hand or emoji if you want to speak. Everyone is muted until they speak, and everyone's conversation is important, even if it may not be your belief. Don't judge others.
That sounds pretty good to me. Carla, could you go on and continue to read Arena's bio?
Okay, tonight's guest, Arena Wells. Arena's life journey has been anything but conventional,
Mm.
shaped by the unique experience of foster care and subsequent adoption into a diverse family with 7 siblings, each from distinct backgrounds. Arena faced abuse and disregard in this household, influencing her early experiences in education and society. These challenges fueled her determination to advocate for and address systemic issues disproportionately affected marginalized communities, my kind of people. In her transition to young adulthood, Arena embarked on a journey to break free from a cycle of abuse, seeking a healthier future for herself and her daughter. This quest led to her to explore holistic practices such as yoga, aromatherapy, meditation, energy healing, and ultimately quantum touch.
Oh, shrink it down. Now I can move it. The name of her conversation is Adopted. Y'all getting ready? Get ready, get ready.
Yay!
Yay. I looked up some stats today from statistica.com, and it says the number of children in foster care in the United States in December of 2023 was 391,098. And the number of children awaiting adoption in the United States is 113,599. And the foster and unrelated children living in American households right now, as we speak, is 1.2 million children. Y'all hear that? And so without further ado, let's go on and bring our guests on. Irina, you got the stage.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I am honored to be here, especially talking about this topic. When I decided that I was actually going to come on here and talk about it, it was a little hard for me because the subject is a pretty dismal subject for me, but it is the thing that actually brought me to who I am today. So I honor it, and in an effort to move through the experiences that I'm going to be sharing with you, I figure it's important to name it to tame it in a way, to share and give voice to these kinds of experiences that a lot of children are having, obviously, after listening to those statistics. I hope that my recollection and experience with adoption is a rare one. There was something that was really, really difficult for me, and having all of these siblings, now that we're adults, seeing how it's affected all of us each differently. So I guess I'll start briefly with a brief beginning. I am was an immediate adoption. I'm from California, and my biological mother was 12 years old when I was born. And I have been told that back in '87 when I was born, that it was considered an immediate adoption because of her age. So, and I'm talking, this was immediate. I have seen a copy of my original birth certificate, and the only information that's on there is her last name, my name. I didn't have a name. It literally says no name on my birth certificate, and then her age and who would have been my father's age. So there's not very much information there to begin with. So then I went into foster care and was bestowed the identity of Lori Ann. And I was in the care of these two elderly people until I was about 4 months old. And then I got adopted into the Wells family. At that time, my adoptive parents had only one other child, my older brother, Josh. So it was just he and I for some time. And in my adolescence, I do remember having really sweet moments with my adoptive mother. It really wasn't until I hit puberty that things started changing. And by then, I had many, many more siblings. And my oldest brother, just to kind of give you an idea of this amazing spectrum that I got to be a part of, my oldest brother is Polynesian. I'm Black, Spanish, and Irish, and my youngest brother is Vietnamese. All my other siblings were all everything in between. So something I always grew up with, a mantra for our family was different is okay. That is a foundation that I sit upon as I move about as an adult with all of the ever-changing things happening in our society. That's something that was planted in me from the beginning. But going into puberty, things started becoming awry with my adoptive mother. As a child, I didn't quite understand what was going on, but there was a lot of physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. Her, when she was getting angry and basically beating me, she would be telling me things to cut me down, like, you're going to be, excuse my language, a whore like your biological mother. This is why nobody wanted you to begin with. This is why you're lucky to have me, to have came and saved you basically from the system and your biological parents. So this mantra was this new mantra was basically beaten into my head from the time I was 11, 12 years old, all the way up until um, she ended up kicking me out of my home and displacing me onto the streets when I was 17. All through during that time, it wasn't only me who was enduring abuse, it was all of my siblings. And I just happened to be the one that was like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I would go through different bouts of running away from the home when I was very, very young, 12, 13 years old. I would just leave with a backpack and go stay outside for as long as I could until I had to come home. And I didn't have any food. I couldn't get a job. I had to go back. There were times where I would go to the police and say, hey, this woman is beating me and I need help. And they would bring me back to her house. And
Mm.
my adoptive mom is a white woman. And so it was really difficult. She has all these fetal drug and alcohol exposed children. All of my siblings are fetal drug and alcohol exposed in various different ways. But whenever I was returned back to my home, she would say, oh, thank you. Thank you so much for finding her. She's on a lot of medication right now. She's currently coming down off of drugs. She's a habitual liar. Like, we're really working with her. I have 6 other fetal drug and alcohol exposed children. So this is something that I deal with all the time. And a white woman saying this to a police officer and then looking at me and this crew of multicultural and multiracial children, they just gave her back to me, or gave me back to her rather. And as soon as that door closed, I was
Wow.
even more trouble because I was gone and I told somebody. Like, it was to the point of where I was telling teachers from middle school all the way into high school, asking anybody, please listen to me, help me. The school counselors, even people at her church. I grew up in the Roman Catholic way of thinking. And I remember one time when I was a child, I was hiding in the bathroom. I didn't want to go to youth group and I was crying. And I come out of the stall and this woman I never even knew before looked at me and she was like, oh my gosh, Arena, oh, your mother has told us so much about you. We are so glad that you're moving away from being hooked on meth. I didn't even know what meth was at that time. And I was like,
Oh
who are
Lord.
you? And why are you saying these things to me? And for a long, long time, I internalized these things because sometimes it got so extreme that I didn't know if it was for real. Like, am I a liar? Was I doing drugs? Was this shit that I was doing that I was unconscious of and I didn't understand? And everything just got so confusing. I felt like I didn't have my own identity. I felt like nobody wanted me. I honestly felt objectified for being a Black person because of the way my white adopted mother would put us on display to get kudos from other people for her saintly work.
Mm.
So I just was this huge bundle of confusion, and I didn't feel like I had an identity. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I came from. My only purpose in my mind was to help get this woman clout so that she could get more resources for whatever it is that she was trying to do. And um, it just got to the point where I decided I don't want to be here. Like, my siblings, like, I can't save all of you guys. I'm only like 11, 12, 13 years old. We're all getting jacked up. I'm fighting back at this point. Nobody else is fighting back. So I keep getting the brunt end of it. And so I start just leaving and getting more and more brave with being outside and sleeping outside and finding resources for myself to eat outside until was driven back home. Well, it came a point where she was at a point where she couldn't control me anymore. That's when she kicked me out of my home. And then I ended up in the beginning of my chain of abusive relationships with men, because in
Oh
my
my.
mind, this is how I should be treated, because this is how I've always been treated in my mind, completely just forgetting my entire childhood.
Right.
And so going down through this line of abusive people, I've it took me to getting beat by a man. It took me to a whole other country. I lived in Mexico, in Juarez, Mexico, when all of the crazy things with the cartel and stuff were going down back in 2006, 2007. Like, it
Tell us
led
more
me.
about that. How did you end up in Mexico?
So I ended up in Mexico because after I met this guy, and we started dating, and we were together for about 2 years. This is actually the same guy who got me addicted to crack cocaine. So
Oh,
along with these abusive relationships, I was then also being introduced other substances, and substances that I gladly invited so that I could get out of this place that I was in. I didn't
Hmm.
want to be on earth. I didn't want to be in this body. I didn't want to be with these thoughts. I didn't want to be with these memories. And why should I? Because as far as I know, nobody wanted me to begin with. So I just dove into that world with him. And then one day he got deported. So I was like, I don't have anything here, so I'm just gonna work and then take a bus to Mexico. And at this point,
what?
there had been an altercation with my adoptive mom, where she called the police. She flattened all of my tires when my car was parked on the side of the street, not in her driveway, so it was on public property or whatever. She stabbed my tires, let all my air out, and when I tried to drive away, she called the police and got my ID taken away. And then she was also withholding my birth certificate and social security card. So from when she kicked me out to when I met this boy and went to Mexico, I was literally using a fake green card to get a job because
Mm.
I
Oh
had no
my.
identification. I had to pay somebody to get this ID so that I could start getting jobs, so I could start making money, because then I could be productive and start building from there. And um, once I got out to Mexico, still with no ID, no birth certificate, no
How did you
social
get
security
in?
card.
The
Oh my
green
gosh, I'm gonna
card?
tell you. No, let
No
me tell you.
passport, Arena?
Nothing. I had nothing. And I just go over there because they're not checking your stuff to go into that country. And then I'm like, well, I have the ability. I'm like right there on the border. I mean, granted, it took me three hours, 4 buses, and a mile walk down the highway, but I got a job in El Paso. And I remember the first day I was trying to attempt to go across the border. I'm like standing in line with all the people, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And just when I got up to the police officers at the border, I just started crying. And I mean, like, oh my God, like I don't have my ID and I really need to get over into this country. It's my country, obviously. Listen to me talk. This is where I belong. Like, please let me in. Like, here's my social security number. I even told them they could call my adoptive mom, even though I had had no contact with her for a couple years at that point. But I was like, here's all the information. Here's the last address I remember her at. Here's my social security card. And they just let me in. They just let me in. And I went and took that opportunity. And I had a check from my last job, but I didn't have any way to cash it. Well, by the grace of
What?
God, this
Yeah.
woman, I was going around just checking places, and this woman, I was talking to at Wells Fargo because I just was going into banks and places to see if I could cash it. And I told her all of the things, and she was like, I'm going to cash this check for you. And then I'm going to take you around and make sure you get some food and show you some places that you can
A
go to
banker
work.
did that? What?
Yes, and she really helped me. Now, before I was living in Mexico, I did the jobs I was able to get with my green card were as an exotic dancer and clubs.
No,
So
you didn't. No, you
yes,
didn't,
I
Arena.
did.
Oh
Yes, I did.
Lord.
I needed money. And if that's the only way I could get a job is to go ahead and do that with my green card, that's what I'm gonna do. So when I was actually waiting in line at the border, somebody who used to see me in Colorado was on that bridge
Mm.
in on the way to Mexico, and he stepped down. He was like, "Arena," and I was like, "Oh my God, like, why are you here?" But he's actually the one that got me over to the Wells Fargo to talk to the chick, then turned around and helped me out.
Look at
Then
God.
right, like this is a reoccurring thing for my whole life. There's always someone that's just like, Arena, and I'm like I don't know what I'm gonna do, and they're just like, here, come on, let's go, and then just gets me through to the next challenge. So I end up getting all of that squared away, and I end up getting a job. The guy helps me to find a job at a club there who doesn't need an ID. So I work at this club and then take the bus back to Mexico every night.
What were
And
you doing? Pole dancing or strip dancing?
yep,
Or both?
both, all of it, both of it.
Oh my
And
God.
so, yep. And so then I would take my bag of money, put it in my backpack, and I would walk a mile back up the highway to catch the bus, and then make my way the 3 hours and 5 buses back over Mexico. Then when I
Into
get into
Mexico, of
Mexico,
all places.
yes, I
Lord
would go
have
back to
mercy.
Mexico every day because that was my home. And once I got to Mexico, um, I would have to walk the rest of the way home. And the area that I lived in was like the ground was all completely dirt. The houses were made out of clay. The security systems were broken glass on top of the walls with sand so that people can't climb over the walls. Like just like rabid dogs with thousands of ticks all over their bodies, like all kinds of just interesting things. I will say though, all that considering, the people in that country were the most helpful, inviting, and accepting beings I had ever met in my life up to that point. I was able to learn Spanish in 3 months because the entire public would help me. I would be on the bus or be lost and I would say something to them in English. They wouldn't understand me. And then I would go to walk away and they would grab my arm and say like no, like let's work through this. And then once we were able to understand each other, they would teach me the words that I didn't know and have me repeat it back. And it just was so consistent with this assistance that I was able to learn to speak Spanish. I was learning to navigate. Like all the dudes who were driving around with their AR-15s and their Jeeps were always like super chill, like, hey, like I really became a part of that culture and a part of that community. And it felt really nice despite all of the extracurricular things I was doing at that time. It was the safest and closest thing that I had to a a safe space up until that point.
Wow.
Were you using the drugs then too as well?
Yes, so I was able to get myself off of crack
Yay.
between the time that my dude at the time went to jail and I went to Mexico. During that short time, I just stopped. And that day that he went to jail, I just stopped because he was supplying me. And I have a huge, huge pride, and I could not bear to go purchase it myself when he went
Mhm.
to jail. So I just stopped. And but then when I got out to Mexico and back with him, it was cocaine. That was the common substance out there. So then I started going down that road, and
Oh Lord.
it got crazy. Like we would be driving down the road, like just driving, playing chicken, just going through all of the crossroads, not even looking. I remember we got hit once by a car, and the chick that was next to me in the back passenger seat, the door was broken, flew open. Her body goes flying out of the car and tumbling onto the ground. Her man's like screaming her name, gets out of the car, grabs up her body, throws her back in the car, gives her a line, and we continue the journey. Like it was just
What?
like we didn't care if we were going to die in that moment. We didn't care if we were going to die tomorrow. Like when I lived in Mexico, like to say that that was the safest space that I had from the time that I turned like 11, 12 and started my period to that moment is insane. Like I've had guns stuck in my face. I literally was at a place where I'd looked down that barrel and I looked at that guy and I was like, go ahead and kill me. I really don't care. I'm ready.
Wow.
This is what you're gonna do. Then just do it. I don't care. I'm ready. And he just looked at me like, you know what? I'm gonna leave you alone. I'm like, okay.
Mm.
Like it was just such like for everything, I had to fight for everything. And but I got smart because something that my adoptive dad, even though he was dismissive in terms of helping me when he knew I was being hurt and even defending himself and the rest of his children, he always taught me that it was important to be aware of the streets. My adoptive father was actually a really big drug dealer in Compton, California back in the day. And he embezzled
Lord.
millions and millions of dollars through big corporations internationally. And he always taught me like it's really good to be smart with your books and things like that, but it's also good to have a strategic mind like Napoleon or Alexander the Great and things like that. So I got privy to the houses of change in Mexico. And I also became aware of currency exchange. So I would take my bag of American money and I would walk across the border to go home. And then I would sit outside of the houses of change the houses that changed the currency. And I would wait for them to run out of American dollars so that the value of them went up. And then I would go and sell them my American dollars for pesos. So I would be giving them like $100. I would get back 1,500 pesos. So I would almost double my money. I would do time and a half basically. Well, I was going back and forth and doing all these things. And Then one day, the guy that I went out there with just totally, we were saving money to come back here. My intention was to be with this person forever. We were going to get money and go back to America and live regular lives. But he
And
ended
you
up
were
taking
out
all the
there
money.
working. Was he
Yes,
working while you were working?
yes, but the pay rate in Mexico is so different. Like he was working at a gas station and he would only make $80 a week. So me being able to go into America to work and bring back cash and do that exchange rate that I figured out to get more really put us in a good position if we weren't drug
Oh
addicts.
Lord.
Yeah. Like it is out of control. So like it got to the point where I was getting tired. I was getting tired of how I felt every day. I was getting tired of feeling trapped. um, I'm a person who does not like to feel trapped. I do not like when people try to tell me
Why
what
did
to
you
do
feel trapped? Why did you feel it? What
because
made you?
I didn't feel like I was doing I didn't feel like I was being Arena. And I have always been consistently on this journey to be Arena because I was always told that I'm not who I am and that nobody gives a shit about me. And that was hard for me
Wow.
to accept because in my mind, I'm like, well, if I'm here, like it must be for a reason more than to just suffer like this or to
Mm.
be talked to like this or touched like this by my mother or what have you. And even when I was young, like the very beginning um of my discord, especially with men, was I remember a time Teresa thought my adoptive mother is Teresa. She thought that maybe I was being molested, and she started asking me, "Is your father molesting you? Are your uncles molesting you? Is your brother molesting you?" So it made me very estranged from the men in my family to be asked this by my mother with such like and like she just like she knew that that could be something that would happen. So that was kind of the beginning of this downfall with all these men being like like so estranged from thinking of knowing what a healthy relationship is, and it was
So
just so much.
what was your relationship like with your dad at that time?
We didn't really talk. I remember well I remember the moment that I really separated myself from even caring if I had a relationship with him. um I was wearing a necklace that had a geometrical sign of a tetrahedron on it, and she thought it was like devil magic, and I said it's math, and she got mad. And this was like a choker that was fastened onto my neck forevermore. And she ripped it off of my neck, slapped me in the face so hard I had a handprint on my face. And I got so mad, I hit her back. And we were
Oh
actually on our way out the door to go to church, but I was angry. I'm like, you don't treat me like this. You can't treat me like this. I don't deserve this. So I hit her back, and my father came up and grabbed me out of her hands by my neck, carried me by my neck from the door to the garage, slammed me up against the garage, slapped me again, and then told me to never touch her like that. And I looked at him, I remember right in his eyes, and said, "So I'm supposed to just let her do that to me?" And he didn't have any words. And I was made to go to church. And I remember the heat on my face, the heat on my neck from the necklace. And in that moment, I was like, I can't trust you either. Like, you're not going to help me. You don't care.
So what was their relationship like, the husband and the wife,
It was
the adopted
rocky.
parents?
I know that my mother made it abundantly clear to everybody his faults, which he was addicted to drugs and alcohol, as were a lot of the men in the Black community at that time. Also, they had to deal with, when I look back on it, they had to deal with a lot of racism because he's a Black man, he's a white woman, and getting together and adopting a bunch of, multicultural children was just not popping back in that day.
So your dad
I
was
know that,
black.
yes, yes. And she treated him how she treated us. Like she belittled him, made him feel ashamed for his vices, and would never let him forget his betrayals to her that happened like before they even adopted us. And I actually took care of my father on his dying days. He had ended up with pancreatic cancer, COPD, diabetes, all kinds of things. And I was his caregiver for the last year or so of his life. And I got to know who he
What?
was.
You forgave him?
Yes, we got to
Did you
talk
forgive
about
him?
things. I did, and we had that specific conversation, and I feel like that's why I feel at peace with him. It was so interesting learning how she affected his life to the point of where, like, because he at this point he did not care. He was all jacked up, all skinny, like he would go off into different worlds in the midst of conversations. But he would always tell me, "I hate that woman. It was cheaper to keep her, baby, and that's why I was still there. And I wish
Mm.
I never went down that road with her." And
Did
I
you
was like,
tell
"Well,
him
you
how
got,
you felt?
oh yeah, yeah." I told him, and he agreed with me, and he was like, "Well, there's nothing we can do about it now." I was like, "Well, after you pass away, Dad, I'm out of here. No reason for me to be around."
Oh, so you went back to the home to help?
Yes, and I went back to the home to help. I went back to the home, period, because my daughter's father and I separated when she was 2, and he kept the apartment, and I moved back there. And that
So
was
this was
like,
after Mexico.
yes, this was just like 8 years ago, and Mexico happened in like 2006, 2007. So
How
I
did
kind
you
of
get
have
out
been
of there? How did you get out of
um
Mexico?
out of Mexico. So the guy ended up taking all of the money we saved to get his papers and leaving and going on a bench for 3 days. He came
Oh
back after
no.
3 days, had a crumpled up piece of paper, threw it into my face, and said, "You owe the hospital 2,000 pesos," which is only $200,
Wow.
but that's my
Yes.
dollars. And then by
Wow.
that time, I had already had my bags packed. I was just waiting for him to come so I could tell him to his face. And so I told him to his face. He ended up keeping my, by that time, I actually was able to get my birth certificate, which was so hard because I'm adopted. So there's multiple birth certificates. I had to do all of this stuff over the time I was there. And I got that. I got my birth certificate and social security card. But when I left, this man kept my birth certificate and social security card for ransom and told me he was going
Wow.
to sell it if I didn't come back and pay me money for it. That's how far down the rabbit hole he stayed with the whole drug thing. And I was just like, so I've been really, by that time, I was really good at getting men to help me to do things and to do what I wanted. So there was this dude that used to come see me all the time at the club I worked at, and he was stationed in the Fort Bliss military that was right there in that is right there in El Paso. He came with me to Mexico to get my papers back.
Did he?
And then, yes, but then when I got my papers back and he knew that I had my ID, then me and him only knew each other for a couple months. He wanted to get married because I didn't have an
Mm.
excuse anymore to not marry him. I would use the excuse I didn't have any identification. Then he wanted to get married, and I was like, I don't want to get married to you because love is so sacred.
Yay.
I can't just
Wisdom.
do that. I cannot just do that. And I've been engaged like 4 times to all of these aggressors that I was with that tried to take me and wrap me up in um, this marital like commitment. And I just every time, even my daughter's dad, like when we were pregnant and everything, he'd be like, "You want to get married?" And I'd be like, "I don't. I just don't. My heart says no, so that's gonna be a no." So, I- so he helped me get my stuff. Then he said he wanted to get married. I said I didn't want to do that. So I called Teresa because I know of anything of that woman. She really needs people to need her. So if I called her and I needed her and I made myself sound like a sniveling little like, "Oh, you're so right and I'm so wrong," that she would come and get me. So I called her. Oh,
So you
this was
learned to
after
play the game.
yes, but the reason why I ended up going home is because I actually got abducted when I was in El Paso by 3 people outside of my work. I was coming out of my job and this dude rolled up, opened up the door, had a gun, and said, "Get in my car."
Was
And
this at
him
the
and
strip club?
yes, in El Paso. This was like the last straw because at this time I was living in a hotel trying to kind of stay away from that military guy. But the hotel was right next to the club I was working at. So I would just scurry over real quick to get back to my room because it was a shady area. And yeah, but I mean, nothing is shadier than walking down Juarez Street at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I felt
Mm,
like I was okay.
Wow.
And
mm,
yeah, so they took me, and I had a cell phone at that time, and it was one of those cell phones where you like to say like cat, you have to like hit the two button 3 times to get to C and then 1 time to get to the A. And I had this sequence memorized. And they had me in the back of the car. I was looking out the window and I could see street signs as we were going by. And I was texting them to my friend Janae, who lives in Colorado, and letting her know like I just got like kidnapped. I just got taken. These are the streets that I'm passing. She was able to find where I was. She was able, like I went and hid in the bathroom. I told them, you're gonna have to kill me and do whatever you want to my body because I'm not gonna do it willingly. I don't know what to tell you. My homegirl called. I literally gave them my phone. I don't know exactly what she said, but one of them came through and was like, I'm gonna bring her back to the border. We're not gonna fuck with her. So they ended up taking me back to the border, thinking that that's where I was staying at the time. And I was able to come back and just be like, I can't do this. I called Teresa from a payphone and said, come and get me. She met me in Arizona. We ended up coming back to Colorado. And then the story just kind of loops again because I'm then stuck in an environment with her again. Then I
Mm.
meet my daughter's father, who's definitely better than all the other dudes that I had ever been with, but there was still that underlying manipulation that I had to keep in my hemisphere that was normal to me. So I just kept bouncing from frying pan to frying pan over that open
Oh
flame.
Lord.
Yes,
That's the name of the
up in,
book.
yeah, oh man, it's just been like, and it's honestly, I'm 36 now, and all of this kind of cycle literally has been going on since Teresa inevitably, because of what our patterns are, kicked me out of her home last year. So so literally right now, this home that I'm in is Janae's home, the woman that basically saved my life when I got kidnapped. She's somebody who was there throughout the brunt of my abuse with my family. She stood up for me. If I ran away, she would try to give me safe space. Somebody who has seen my entire journey. I'm living in her home now until I can get myself back out there. But this is the first time since I was 11, 12 years old that I've been in safe space. And
Wow.
even adjusting into a safe space was hard. And in the beginning, the first couple months, she would have to keep reminding me, like, it's okay. This is permanent for you. This is something you can trust because I have a hard time trusting people. People would tell me, okay, I'm gonna help you. And then you give me back to my abusive mother. Somebody told me it's okay, I forgive you, and I come back and you beat my ass. Like just all these things, all these people telling me all these things that are stories that I just don't believe. Right now, in just the last 7, 8 months, right now, I've gotten to feel safe space and a huge level of relief from all of those things. Um,
it-
but I,
go ahead. I was
no,
gonna
no,
say
go
it's,
ahead.
it's interesting for me as you talk, because sometimes we don't see our journey, we don't see ourselves, and we really don't understand and see our journey when we're actually walking in that journey. But as
Yeah.
I listened to you talk, you talked about, and then God is I use God as the supreme being. It seemed like He always sends someone to
Yeah.
rescue you, something,
Absolutely.
someone to help you go through to the next side. So my question to you is, and as you tell your story out loud, have you sat down and go backwards in your story? Because you talk about manipulation and control by your mom, and it seemed like those are the people that you're attracted to, or the people that you attract, those who manipulate and control you. Where do you think you are in your journey now? Now that
I
you
think
found that safe space.
I think where I'm at in my journey now is using what I've been through constructively to help others. Um, and I say that because I have spent the last 20 years of my life figuring out, going back to that statement, who am I? Who is Arena? What does that mean to me? How does that make me feel? Going through all of these things. It really started like everything that I do now, I had mentioned earlier, I love what I do. Everything that I do today is things that make me happy because these are things that help me heal. And I believe if these are things that help me heal, especially when I listen to myself and the things that I've come through, then this can help other people. And I'm at a
Yeah.
point now in my journey where I have enough knowledge inside to be able to guide others. And I believe that it would be a travesty and offensive to humans if I didn't come and share and show what I've done to move away from substances, drug abuse, like physical abuse, being a people pleaser, always allowing people to twist my mind so that I've just become their slave in a way. And it took me a long, long time, and I'm still moving through some things, but I feel like my mind is clear and my voice is how it's supposed to sound when I talk. And I smile all the time, like I'm happy all the time. A lot of the time I have to contain it inside and not let it
Mhm.
out too much. But this is what I have created for myself. And I want to show others how to create that, because when I see people, because I work with the homeless community, I bring them meals and I bring them donations that I collect from people in my community, because I used to be homeless. I remember it was like sleeping on the ground in the winter, wondering if I fall asleep, am I going to wake up? Or even if I do wake up, what does it matter? Because when am I going to eat? So like I
Mm.
try to use these experiences and really look at them and see how they shaped me, and even think, what did I want during that time? Like, did when I was didn't have like enough clothing to be sleeping outside and somebody gave me something, that was everything to me. That was everything to me.
You
And
know,
so I want to be able to
mhm,
provide that for others.
oftentimes our pain births our purpose.
Come on now, Carla. Woo!
Everything that we've been through and everything that we go through, even though it's painful and it's heart-rending, is something that God uses. And when you talked about being able to identify with the homeless because you've walked in their shoes, being able to find a young woman or man that's been manipulated and controlled and honestly don't know who they are, didn't know who they are because they were told who they are or who, who they is or whatever, but they know that's not who they are.
Wow.
So you're saying that what I hear from you is that you're going to turn your pain into your purpose and your passion.
Yes, exactly. And I fully believe, and I see, I know that if it wasn't for all of these crazy things, that I would not be who I am today. And I can say with no fear, no doubts, 100%, I love myself so much. Like I look at myself in the mirror, and I like to look at myself a lot, because there were times, even when I remember when I was younger and I was moving through a lot of the manipulation, I would just look at myself in the mirror, into my eyes, and I would just look at my face like, is who are you? Is this arena? Like I would really examine myself, and that's something I've done my whole life. Now when I look in the mirror, the reflection that I see looks so different than the reflection that I remember, but it feels more like me. And what it took for me to liberate myself from the masks and all of the shackles that were placed upon me, for whatever the reason is, from all of the people who did those things, honestly, was it was really awareness. Because the path that I took to start healing myself was a holistic path, because I would go to the doctors, and I'm a scientific based holistic healer. I love to study, I love to read, I love to see the supporting documentation, the clinical studies for different things. And when doctors were telling me things, a lot of the times it didn't even make sense what their bottom line was. I'm like, why? We got the internet now. Why are you telling me this? This doesn't make any sense. This is not helpful. This is not sustainable. This is not even realistic. How do you think I could even afford something like this for the long term? So then I was like, well, what can I do myself? And I started doing yoga. I started getting into meditation. I started getting into self inquiry, asking myself when a toxic thought would come in, I would say, is this true? Is this helpful? Is this something that I want to hold on to? Is this something that's healthy for me? Or is this a story that is not real and that I can let go of? And I had to just bring it all the way back and just step by step, every little thing that triggered me. Is this real? What's happening to cause this? Is this something I need to attach to? And just taking it every little step and then finding another modality that made me feel whole inside. There's one thing that I have always told myself, and I think is the one thing that kept me going and having my own back was I want to live. I never said I don't want to die, despite all of the death-defying situations I was in. I always said I want to live. I want to live. Whatever that means in this moment, that's what I want. And now that same statement, when before it was a statement of survival, is now a statement of creativity, that I want to live. I want to blossom, and I want the perfume of the glory that I have discovered to encompass everyone that I come around, because we all deserve to be in this kind of space. It's just a
What
matter
is
of how
that
we
glory
get
that you
ourselves
discovered?
there.
That's an interesting thing that you just said. You want to live in the glory of what you discovered. What have you discovered?
I've discovered the simplicity of happiness, of choosing being happy, finding reasons and excuses to be happy, creating the world around me so that it only brings that kind of happiness into my life. So much so that when those bad things do happen, that I know in my heart of hearts that I am divinely protected and everything's going to happen exactly how it should, because that's exactly how it's always been. So I don't need to question or to wonder or to even try to answer some of my own questions. I just ask the question and let come what come. I see the obstacle, I see the hurdle, and I say, okay, maybe that means I need to slow down. Or maybe that means I need to take a couple steps back. Or maybe that means I need to assess what my next move is going to be instead of resisting this obstacle. I don't even have to look at it as bad anymore. I look at it as a challenge because I'm ready to step up to it. So everything that comes out is all good. And I don't know. It's just the way that I have constructed things to be. And I think that it's so sustainable and it's so easy when you can make that shift. Granted, it takes a lot of work. I did a lot of different things and put them all together to figure out how to make this a sustainable way of being.
Yeah. I admire your tenacity and how your resilience has been built up because of your journey. I'm glad that you show no fear, no shame. What do you tell your daughter
I tell her
as
the truth.
I mean, which is, I mean, that's important because we have to be our authentic selves, and we don't want to sugarcoat anything. But what have you learned from life that you would share with your daughter and the other young girls that you're going to come in contact with?
To believe in yourself unequivocally, that if the ideas are coming into your mind, that they are for you. They're not for someone else to do. It's for you. That's why you're being given that vision. That's why you're being given that motivation. And to really believe in yourself. It's so hard when everybody else is telling you, no, that's crazy. Like even being a small business owner, I've been told like I'm abusing my daughter, I'm neglecting my daughter, I'm not doing this and not doing that. But I take those for what they are. They're words, they're suggestions. In some cases, they're spells people are trying to place upon me to keep me from continuing on. I see that, and that's okay. And and especially with my daughter, I let her know that what is the most important thing for her to do is to be the best Zenobia that she can be. The world wants to see Zenobia. You came out here to be Zenobia, so you should do that, and then let me know how I can support you on your way.
Yeah, and I see her being proud of her mommy too, because mommy has endured a lot. Mommy has, mommy has lived and mommy has thrived even though she's been through what she's been through. And I really love your story. I love the smile, the positive energy, and how you turn the bad into something good. What was meant to kill you has actually made you stronger.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is being able to identify. For me, is like, who am I? When you lived in a home with a black father, a white mother, the white mother demoralized the black man. That right there is an issue by itself.
Yeah.
How you see yourself. Who do you identify with?
Before I did not even identify as Black. Before I only identified as being Irish. That was it. That was all. Because I felt completely objectified as a Black person, or even, my other traits and my other cultures that were inside of me. It really wasn't until recently that I identify as a Black person. Like, and that even with my daughter, I let her know how strong and beautiful that is, and that it's up to us to continue to honor our lineage and make our lineage proud, despite the things that people say or the things that we experience as individuals. That's, I feel like, the thing I was kept farthest away from as I was growing up, and now that I'm grown, I want to be closer with it.
Yeah. You said something the last time we talked, when we had the conversation, when you identified the your ancestry. You talked about how, I don't know if it's different things happened to you or different things that you did, kind of identified with the people that's in you. The women and the men that you walk in their footsteps, that even though you never met them, that actually poured into you. Um, and I really like that, because I am all of that. So it doesn't make a difference if part of me is from Africa, part of me is from Ireland or whatever. It's the whole sum of me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's who I am. I'm all of that stuff. I recognize that.
Well, you got
I
stirred up
acknowledge
up in the bowl so that you could become bold. Yes.
yes.
Tammy, you want to say something?
Yeah, Arena, what is your relationship like with your siblings now that you're not in that environment anymore? Do you still keep in contact with them?
That's a good
What part of
question.
your life are they?
We're so crazy close, to be honest. I mean, my youngest
Good.
brother lives out in Georgia, but all my siblings are like, my daughter and I actually went over to my sister's house with my other sister for like a movie sleepover night. So like we're really close. We really are there to support each other. The only thing that sucks is that we cannot speak with each other about our past. Like I
Oh,
choose not to call our adoptive mother mom. I call her Teresa because she doesn't get to have that title in my life, when she just was so scantily and loose-lipped with it when we were younger. Like that is something that to take pride in, especially me being a mother now. Like, I'm not gonna call you my mom. You are Teresa. But like my other siblings, they don't like that. If I call her Teresa in front of them, we're about to be in a verbal altercation. There's my oldest brother who is an alcoholic presently, and that's how he's moving through all of the things that happened to him when we were young.
Mm.
wow.
My youngest brother
He's
had to
getting
leave
after
the
the
state
father.
because he couldn't be around Teresa. Like my two of my sisters are completely cut off from the experience. They don't understand why I'm upset. They don't understand why our other sister Rachel is upset, who also had received a lot of physical, mental, emotional abuse from this being in this family. So we're all handling it different ways, and we all have an instinctual need to be there for each other. Um, but there's just certain things that we can't talk about. And I reckon I'm the second oldest in the lineup. And just looking at my younger siblings, I'm like, we all saw something different. We all saw something completely different. And that is what it is. And they don't, and I'm the most voicing of it. So they get upset about that. But I'm like, I'm not going to just put under the rug what happened to me. This is still my experience that happened. That's legit. And
Yeah.
And then with all
You
your
say,
other experiences that you talked about and that you had, when you're entering into a situation that could take you to that point, do you have like red flags and things that trigger you to know not to be in that situation now?
absolutely. I was actually faced with a huge one, which was being around a group of Hispanic men, because that was during the period where I was getting drugged and waking up in strange places and all those kinds of things. And I was working with this woman named Natasha, who was trying to create a nonprofit for the work that we were doing with the homeless community. And we were going to get a fiscal sponsor with this company called Lifeline out here. And when I walked into that building, they do they help reintegrate people who have come out of the prison systems, and like they just have that look. They just have that look of all the dudes I used to hang out with and all the things. And we walked into that building, and I did my best to stay professional and to be attentive. I just went. When I get into a situation like that, I immediately go into a tactical mindset where I get serious. I make sure I recognize what all of my exits are. I look at the body of the person that's standing next to me to see if they have any weapons on them. And I start making sure that I know in my mind ways to get out. If the and then also in my mind, if there's going to be a physical altercation, how I can begin to try to get myself away far enough to be safe. So these are all the things that go on in my mind when I'm in an unsafe space. And
Wow.
I barely kept it together. And at the end of it, Natasha was like, dude, you look like you're about to poop your pants and throw up at the same time. Like, are you okay? I was like, dude, that was really triggering. And to be honest, I don't think that we should even work with these guys, because the energy that they give me is just, it was
Wow.
like what I
You have
remembered.
what we call the spirit of discernment. And so
Oof.
you know how to see the real demons. You lived with demons, so now you know them and you can see them, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like, and before I used to be like, well, I used to live in seeing people's potentials. So I used to be like, well, they could do better, which we could all do better. I mean, come on, get it together. But I was just like, I was like, they're gonna do good and they're gonna turn it around and do all this stuff. And then I end up getting shafted in the end, or feeling inadequate in the end, or what have you. But now when I smell it, I'm like, you can be my client, or you can go over there, because I don't have time or space for anything that makes me feel like that anymore.
Mm,
Mm,
mm.
mm,
You grew up
Mm.
Catholic then, and so what do you
Mhm.
believe about faith now?
mm.
Do you have a faith
I think
practice?
I think they're all very beautiful. I look into them all, because once I got angry with the Catholic religion, but I love Jesus like that. But I just felt like they weren't telling the story right or something. Like every time I would go into the church when I was young, I would see Jesus up on the cross, and it would make me feel so sad. Like, why do I have to look at him like this right now? Like, I feel like this is kind of rude to what happened. And I would always like feel a response from him saying, come find me. Look,
Mm,
come find who I really am, because this
mm,
isn't who I am. So I was always interested in that. But then that led me to, I guess it kind of goes back to what I was saying about the ancestral thing. Like I started finding different guides throughout my life. Jesus was somebody who was very consistent with me. I did move through having an abortion some time ago, and then I found a talisman for this little guy called Ojizu Sama, who hails from the Buddhist way of thinking. And then I have other deities that have come to me, and I just like I started just learning about them. If they came to me, and it'd even be like a person coming to me, like a homeless
what do
guy
you
came up to
mean
me and told
coming
me,
to you? What's
like
that mean?
the so coming to me means like I was walking down the street and I look down and find a piece of jewelry. This is actually it right here. And this is Durga. I found it on the ground and I looked it up, and I know with the Hindu religion they have different arms and are holding different things. So I was able to look up who she was. And Durga is like the patron saint, if you will, or deity of motherhood. And that was when I found that talisman when I was leaving Zenobia's father and moving into being a single mother. At points where I wanted to give up, when I was much, much younger, I remember I met a homeless man. He was talking to me, and he told me his name was Garuda and that I should look that up. And Garuda was another deity from another religion, talking about he was like a deity of valor and of perseverance, and one that would just keep going with his mighty wings like an eagle. So I would just find all these different things, and when I would find one, I would look into it. Like, what is Buddhism, or what is Hinduism, or what is this like branch of Christianity, and what is this, and what is this, and what is this? And so I just started reading about all of them, and they like became like my bedtime story companions, where I would read about these mighty, amazing people who did these great things and never gave up. And then they inspired me and basically became like my hero. So I believe all of the things were put here to help me to continue forward, and that I shouldn't decide not to look at anything because of an assumption or words from other people.
Sounds good. So what's your favorite practice now? The yoga or the meditation? What gives you the most calm and relief?
Right now, it's my quantum touch energy healing and a new method of sound healing that I just started geeking out on in the last week. It's called biofield tuning. But I've kind of moved away, like the yoga, the meditation, is something that is something I've moved away from a little bit. I do it mostly for work. But like the herbalism, the aromatherapy, something that is always special to keep me calm especially when I can get outside. But the quantum touch energy healing and the sound healing, oh my gosh, it is my biggest passion right now. It is so fascinating.
So which one of your deities do you think helped get you through all of the stuff that you've been through?
I really think it was Jesus. I always felt like it's ironic that I do what I do now, because with the sound healing, a lot of it is feeling the vibrations of things happening around me, the subtle energies of things that are happening around me. And when I think back about my experience with feeling subtle energies, the subtle energy that I feel when I'm working with or speaking to Jesus is a feeling that feels like home, which tells me that's something that has been with me for so long. Like some of these people that have come to me, these deities, I'm still getting to know. But like when I see Jesus, I'm like, that's my brother that we're talking about here. You guys don't even
Yeah.
understand.
So you come to
So
have a intimate relationship with Jesus just because he's always been there then, I guess.
always, yes,
Mhm.
always.
And he
Wow.
looks nothing like the Catholic Jesus
Mm-mm.
that you were introduced to. He looks nothing like that. And the reason why I say that is because I too practiced Catholicism growing up as a young girl. I did it in school because I went to not necessarily a Catholic school, but it was affiliated with my school. But at home, my grandmother was, Baptist. She just loved Jesus. So anywhere she can go, any church that loved Jesus and preached the word, she went. But I had my journey when I went looking for the good to defeat the bad. And the good was always with me, but I just didn't know it.
Mm.
And I had to
Oh
find
yeah,
out.
that's true. Yeah. Well, somebody was with Arena because she down in cartel land, down in
He sure
Mexico,
is.
with people
It
punting
sure is.
guns, rolling
And
down on the
protecting her
road.
life.
This
And
a Tyler Perry
protecting her.
movie right here. Though there was a force that's greater than her that was with her to protect her.
And
What?
protecting her.
Mhm.
Put the clothes on.
Woo! So she makes it really so she makes it really true about that all things. Let me just say, get in my little mode. All things work together for the good of those who love the Lord, who are called. Arena, you are called to put his purpose. And he done told you, go heal my people. And there you are. First, you had to be wounded enough to heal. Because if you don't know what being wounded is, then you don't know what healing is, right? So
Yes,
I say you
absolutely
the
agree.
wounded warrior. Yay! That's able to pull some young girls out of their traps. Look, you could even go into one of them clubs and pull some people out.
Mm.
I'm
Let's come over
serious.
here, human.
Jesus went down there to the
Yes, yes.
prostitutes. You know that life. You could go down there and minister to them prostitutes. Yes, you could.
But you know
You could
what?
go down there with them homeless people. You're already doing that. And
Already, I'm about to say.
so look, after being down in Mexico at the Cortel, Denver, Colorado looks like heaven.
I know.
It's
I'm
not.
not worried about anything out here. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I mean, like there was like people getting decapitated in Mexico. Like I saw that. It was
Oh
insane.
Lord. And so, well, you had to learn this warfare thing so that you would be bold for the places
Yep.
that he's got you to go, right?
Because I
I
feel
love
so
your
ready.
story.
Like I feel so ready. I feel like all of the different modalities that I practice are perfect. I've been encouraging other holistic healers that are multifaceted to put together their modalities and find that perfect puzzle like arrangement to because my goal is to service the entire human. My project is called the Whole Human Project, and I want to create spaces and sessions and workshops that service the whole human, not just the
Yeah.
physical part or the mental part or the emotional part or the spiritual part. All of it in one session. I want to serve the whole human. And I can do that by piecing together the knowledge that I have to address each one of those experiences. And I try to encourage other healers that have multiple modalities to do the same. Let's like make a
Amen.
puzzle and see how we can help the whole of the person because we are
Yeah.
whole human.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What do
there's
you think,
different
Carla? Is
dimensions.
this another midwife here?
Yeah, there's another dimension. There's so many dimensions to ourselves. It's more than one. And if you're
Mhm.
off balance in one dimension, you throw the whole human, if you want to use that term, off. So it's important that
Yeah.
we nourish. It's important that we feed
Mm.
every dimension of ourselves.
Amen.
And you said one thing, and I wanted to talk about that as it relates to the way they held. It's another RN you to understand the Western civilization health is based on keeping the illness going so they can profit. But
Yeah.
traditionally, we're talking about prevention and utilizing the herbs that they took to make these drugs.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, healing comes from the earth and the natural resources. So that's definitely something that we all talk, we could talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're a
Yeah.
warrior, you have to go like Evangelist Marilyn said, everything that you've been through on your journey wasn't for you.
Yeah.
It wasn't for you at all. It's for those people, those young women that
Yeah. That
need
you
you,
got to go pull
especially in
out.
this day and time. You speak their language, you understand, you can think like they think.
I wanted to
Definitely.
also share because Miss Dawson, something that you have brought up when we were having lunch, when you had asked me if I hate Teresa, and I responded with like I really am hurt by her, but I don't want to say I hate her. Then you asked me if I love her, and I said the parts of me that remember when things were good were I still do. Those parts still do. And then you asked me if I've forgiven her, and I've said those words, but I don't believe the words that I said, so I don't feel like I've truly forgiven her. And then you suggested that maybe I was placed in her path because she was the first one that I'm supposed to help heal. So
Come on
what I
now.
have done with those words that you shared with me is I have started going over to her house every Wednesday and doing a whole human session with her as best that I can. And it's been maybe like a month now. It's been hard, it's been challenging, but I will say something that I realized is that a lot of the time when she's talking and I'm doing my best to stop resisting what she's saying and taking it personally, I hear this like tiny child who just like inside of her that just got overlooked or abused herself. And it makes
Yeah.
me
There
more
you go.
curious, like what happened to you? But then with the biofield tuning and the things that I'm learning with the tuning forks and the resonance and the frequencies, I'm actually able to decipher the ages and causes of different traumas that are stuck in people's electromagnetic field. Well, that's something I've been working on with her. We haven't really had much conversation that would help to really turn it around, but it's been really helping me to look at it differently. I've decided that
Yeah.
I
You're
don't really
seeing
want to
her
have
from
a
another.
mother-daughter. Yeah, and I don't really want to have a mother-daughter relationship with her, even
Well, you
after I'm
you
done
have
healing
whatever
her, but
you're
I want
supposed to
to,
have.
Yeah, like I want
You
to
don't
have
be resisting it.
interaction with her.
You got you are you healed?
No,
I thought you were gonna say yeah. Yeah.
I don't ever want to be
Well, you
healed
have
because then
an
there won't be any
awareness of
more
yourself
things to
then.
figure
So
out.
as
I
you
love figuring
continue to
stuff
heal
out.
yourself, then you're gonna be able to continue to heal others, especially her. I
Yes,
mean, you could have
and
been
that
put
that
in
was very
any
powerful.
family all around the world, but
Yes,
God chose to put you right there. So there's a purpose to all of that.
yes, I've been exploring
Everything
that,
has
and it
a
has been very
purpose.
interesting.
Yeah. Well, we've loved this wonderful conversation. Tammy, you got anything else to say? Ask.
No, I think a lot of the questions got answered, but thank you for telling your story. And I do know that somebody out there is going to hear that and it's going to be helped and healed and be able to kind of take that into consideration to know that you can have a bad situation and still come out of it okay.
Hmm.
Wow. That Tammy be talking some good words. What? That's my baby. You know, you be getting proud when you see your baby growing up and talking good stuff. Yep.
Mhm.
So this is contact information for Arena. Should you want to find out more about her or have her come and speak for your event or whatever, her phone number is 720-732-7542. And her email is named after her business, earthybeans222@gmail.com. Or you can hit her up on Instagram at Earthy Rena Beans. Hope you can see that. Take a picture, snap that, and we'll be keeping you up to date with what she's got going on. This is my information, Marilyn Dawson, but you can always see me up on the Facebook as Marilyn Dawson RN or the Global Spiritual Healing Ministry. Check it out there. On Saturday nights, we come on Saturday evenings. We know that people ain't hanging out at no clubs and hanging out at restaurants and stuff on Saturdays. They home getting ready for church, right? And so we have our altar to the throne tabernacle prayer just to put you in the presence of God and get you ready for the next day if you're going to church or whatever you're doing, or to help bring burdens off your back, just bringing you to a wonderful place through prayer. And then we have something that I see our sister Carla is doing. Yay!
Yeah.
Is that a Sunday, Carla? That is Sunday.
Yeah, this Sunday. Third
It's
Sunday.
this Sunday
It's
at
this
5
Sunday.
p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So Colorado time, that's going to be 3. She's going to have She Speaks. Yay, Carla. And it's going to
Yes.
have the wonderful Dawn Renee that
Blanchard.
I met over there in Atlanta. That Dawn is prolific, boy. She's a life coach. She's a mental health professional. And she's so creative. She makes this beautiful, beautiful jewelry. But most of all, she speaks. And so take a picture of this or get in touch with me or Carla and find out about this event. And what is it? It's free. Event registration
It's
is
free.
required, though. And so if you go to Carlos CPO or I Am Carla or one of her, I don't see anything here. But
Actually,
tell
I
us
think
how
the
to get in
website, but
touch with you, Carla.
the website is fine. They can find me on Facebook, Carla Scipio, Carla with a K, SCIPIO.
Oh yeah, I always be getting the last name in. But join in. I'm a jump over there, Carla.
Come on, you're welcome.
Yeah. And so this has been the conversations, and we thank everybody that came on. We thank you for Tammy Gardner for helping host us. We thank Carla CPO from Atlanta, Georgia, for jumping on there, even though she was getting off from work. She thought it not robbery to show up and help the sisters out. And most of all, we thank Arena Wells. Let's give her a big hand for that
Awesome
wonderful story. You're so inspiring. You
awesome
inspire us.
story.
You know we're going to have
Thank
you back
you.
so that you can tell us more of your journey. Because I know
Absolutely.
I want to hear what's going on now. I know your journey is beautiful because God's got a plan for you. And
Is it Earth Arena B?
watch and see.
What's her Instagram? What's your Instagram again?
It's Earthy Rena Bean.
Okay, Earth Arena B.
RINA.
Yeah.
Earthy, RINABEAN. She likes them beans, girls. What? And so without much ado, we're headed out of here. Carla, could you just go on and say a prayer for us as we go out? We can't be
Ooh,
on without praying and just letting our Jesus know how grateful we are that he connected her to us. Nothing
amen.
is coincidental. Everything is in his plot and plan. Yes.
All right, I'll go ahead. Father, we just thank you for such a wonderful, wonderful conversation this evening. Father, we just thank you for your presence. We thank you for the connection. We pray that the words and the story that has been shared will touch the lives and minds of women and men all over this world. And as we leave, we'll never from your graces. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
And let Jesus.
Amen.
Hey, you're on the altar to the throne. You're up this Saturday, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes, you are. And you're talking about what? Seek him?
Seeking
What?
God.
Arena, you better come
Seeking
on.
God.
We're going to take you to some new levels, child.
I'm
All the
definitely
other
gonna
Yes.
check it
ministries
out.
you like and love, when you continue to find out about Jesus, you're going to say, well, they mean nothing. Jesus is
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
Great. Thank
Mhm.
you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Carla, going to bed. It's after 8, and I'm going to come
Yeah.
down and eat.
All
Mm.
right.
Bye, guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
y'all. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, man. Come on.